Hey guys, and welcome back to Gabbing with Jessa. Today's video is going to be another book versus movie for a solo book. Well, technically it's part of a trilogy, but there's only one movie out for it so far. I will be comparing Crazy Rich Asians book to its movie adaptation. Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan is a satirical romantic comedy published in 2013. Its adaptation came out in 2018 with the same name, starring Constance Wu, Henry Golding, Awkwafina, and Gemma Chan. Alright, let's get started because I have a lot to say. Spoiler warning as normal for both the book and the movie, so proceed with caution. The book and movie start off the same way, where the main characters are children and their family is being denied a hotel room in London. This scene was great in the book, but I think they shortened it a little too much in the movie because with them being so young, they were able to establish a relationship they would later have as adults. However, we didn't really get any of that. Eddie wasn't even in this scene. The children barely did anything. So I think they kind of shortened it too much. And so it's like, why bother having it in there? I know it's to kind of like say, oh, they have power, they have money, they can just do whatever they want because they just literally bought out this hotel. But I don't know, we didn't get the good starting background like we did in the book. So point book. The way that the movie introduced Rachel with her playing poker against one of her students, because it was supposed to teach them something with economics or probability or something like that. I don't know, I thought that was a really fun way to introduce her character, different from the book, that I really enjoyed. It just showed what kind of a fun character that she would be during this. So point movie. One thing that I cannot stand in movies, or at least when it's done poorly, is texting on the screen. Like when you're trying to show a conversation between people, if they're texting and the little like speech bubbles pop up. If it's done well, it can sometimes add to the story, but I thought that introducing the movie in this kind of a way, I don't know, it felt a little juvenile to me. It just didn't really flow with what the movie was going for, in my opinion, and I honestly just didn't really like it. So I'm gonna give a point to the book for that one. Now, before Nick takes Rachel off to Singapore to meet the family for the first time, he has a phone conversation with Astrid. This conversation is really not only there to help build up what the family is going to be like, she's warning Nick to prepare Rachel for everything that she's about to witness, but also it helps really establish that close cousin bond that Nick and Astrid had that I really like. They're like siblings, even though they're not, but they're still related, so it's still cute. And like they had that really nice bond, and they just kind of eliminated that by not having this conversation, by not preparing Rachel, and they didn't really build up the bond that I really found that I liked in the book between Astrid and Nick. So I'm gonna give another point to the book for that one. I'm gonna have a lot more things to say about Eddie later on in this video, but for some reason, one thing that bothered me so much was that they gave him 3 boys instead of 2 boys and a daughter. I just didn't understand why we needed that change. Like, their names are kind of out there, and it kind of took me a while to figure out if they were like a boy or a girl or whatever. But, I mean, it is later defined, and I just don't, why did they change that? That didn't need to be changed in this. Whatever, point book. So Nick and Rachel are off to Singapore, and Nick is describing his different family members. Now for this moment, because they didn't really like build up the characters to begin with, talking about like Astrid and Eddie and people like that, what I really liked here is that they did this cool little montage thing that showed like how much power each of these different characters has and what exactly they do and things like that. And it was a fun little family montage that I really enjoyed. So I'm gonna give a point to the movie for that one because I thought that was cool. We seem to get to Singapore really quickly in the movie. I know it is relatively soon in the book as well because I mean the majority of the plot does take place in Singapore. And I know for, you know, movie making purposes, the pacing and things like that, it makes sense to get to Singapore quickly because obviously we have things to do in Singapore. But I don't know, I just felt really pushed. It's like, okay, we're in New York for 5 minutes and boom, we're already in Singapore. I mean, like I said, it does happen relatively quickly in the book, but there's some more conversations in between that happen that made it feel like it wasn't as quick. And the movie was just like, we gotta get there, here we are. And so it just seemed rushed to me. So I'm gonna give a point to the book for that one, for not making me feel super rushed. So there's no mention of Nick's parents not going to be at his grandmother Alma's party. And this is really big because not only is this the first party with the family that Rachel's going to be attending, where all of the family's not going to be there, his parents aren't going to be there, like, it builds that kind of suspicion. But also, it's because Eleanor, Nick's mother, is going to be off traveling with her friends to start investigating Rachel and her background and everything. So it's a really big deal because that's a really big part of the story towards the end. And there's just like no mention of it at all. And I just don't understand it because it doesn't make sense because of what they do later. Point book. So Astrid first starts having feelings that Michael is cheating on her way before it is seen in the movie. It would have made more sense to keep in the first scene where you get to meet Michael for the first time and it's just another average night in their home, and then she sees a text message from the fake mistress saying what it says, and then she's like, oh my gosh, like she doesn't find out at the party when she does in the movie, and it just didn't really make sense to put this in this part. I don't know, it just didn't really feel right to me. So I'm gonna give another point to the book. It just didn't feel right. No one stands out to me in the cast more than Awkwafina does as Paislinn. She was my favorite character in the book. She's just everyone's best friend. You just love her so much, and Awkwafina really brings that role to life, and I absolutely loved her for it. She was definitely the best part of this movie. Point movie, it was great. I loved it. One thing that did change about Paislinn that, like, it didn't really bother me, but it kind of bothered me because it wasn't really that big of a deal, was that Nick invited her to Alma's party after she drops off Rachel there. Now in the book, he doesn't give out the invite because it's a family party and she doesn't really know him. So she just like drives off, and then there's this big mystery, and there's this big scene with her and her family where she's like, oh my gosh, you should have seen the house that I was at. You should have seen everyone that was there. It was crazy, it was wild. And there's this big mystery that plays in Nick's family, and that was one thing I really liked about the book, was that even some of the rich people, like Paislinn's family, don't know everyone and don't know everything that's going on. And it just adds a sense of mystery that I like. And he did invite her to the party. She does go to the party, so that sense of mystery is taken away from us. It's not that big of a deal, but I wish that it was still there, so I'm gonna give a point to the book for that sense of mystery. Like I said earlier, there's really no mention of Nick's parents not going to be at Alma's party. This would have been fine. Instead, they decided to add his mother to the party, which is like added in a bunch of feelings, I just didn't like. Why'd she have to be there? That was a big thing in the book, that she wasn't going to be at the first party. I just don't understand. Point book. Something this movie creates that I loved more than anything was this friendship that they had between Paislinn and Ollie. Any scenes that they were in together were absolutely amazing. It was so much fun. They added so much joy to the screen. So I gotta give a point to the movie for that one. It was just so much fun to see them working together. So I'm watching this movie and I'm waiting for one of the main storylines to pop up about Astrid and Michael's relationship. We're a good chunk into this movie so far, and there is no mention of anything with their relationship. Nothing at all. And I don't understand, because this is such a big thing with Astrid, going through and finding his receipts, and him spending a lot of time in Hong Kong for work and things like that. And then her suspicion just keeps growing and growing and growing. And then eventually, she goes and chases after him with Charlie, and it gives us nothing. And I think this is a very important storyline that they just kind of demolished. Point book, obviously. And now it is time for the bachelor and bachelorette parties. How bad each of those parties were aside, we travel off with the boys and they're going on their little adventure. They're in a helicopter, and Bernard's, running the whole show. So on the way there, Bernard's like, okay, we're not gonna have strippers. We're not gonna have dog fighting, etc., etc. He's listing off all these things that they're not gonna have, but that's literally everything that they had in the book. Now, I don't want to see any of that kind of stuff. It was a little hard to read at certain points, but I thought them outright mentioning that they're not going to do this, 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 and this, that they do in the book, it felt like a burn to the author for saying, oh, we're not going to do all these things. You could have just not mentioned them at all and just had a different bachelor party than what was in the book if you didn't want to include any of those, because like I said, I completely understand not wanting to put like dogfighting in there. That's not good. But still, like, you can't do that to the author, in my opinion. I guess maybe it was their way of like saying, hey, we realize that this happened, but we're gonna not do it. But I'd rather just wish that they just didn't mention it at all and had a little bit of a different bachelor party. So I'm gonna give a point to the book for that one. So putting that bachelor party scene aside, that what we were given, Nick and Colin still go off on their little private island, Sans, all the other guys that go with them. But this is the point where Nick tells Colin that he wants to propose to Rachel. And I'm just sitting there like, like, no, he does not know that he wants to propose this early. He doesn't. It's stated very clearly in the book that he didn't realize this. He didn't want to use this trip to, you know, propose to Rachel or anything like that. It was just meant for her to meet his family, and that was it. But then he goes and decides to propose way early on. No, he doesn't want to propose to her until he sees Arminetta walking down the aisle, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's definitely gonna be Rachel. I want that to be Rachel walking up to me during Colin and her wedding. And it's like, that makes sense to how he's feeling in the book. But why mention that now? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Point book. So during the bachelorette party, Amanda, who's supposed to be like, you know, the villain in this, is a lot friendlier to Rachel in the movie than she was in the book. And honestly, this kind of creeped me out a bit. I don't know why. I thought they were going to completely change her character and make her like a nice person or like, you know, friend to Rachel. But I don't know, she was just so creepy the whole time, and she was trying to be nice, and but also, you know, she was talking down to her the whole time. And I don't know, it just felt out of place. I don't know, I just felt weird during that part. So another point to the book. Another one of my favorite characters, even though she's only in the book for like a hot minute, is Sophie. Sophie's the character that comes and basically saves Rachel from the terrible bachelorette party she's having. They hang out, they have a good time. She also tells Rachel that she shouldn't report to the hotel staff when they see the fish in her room that's been all like dead and stuff like that. She's like, no, that's what the girls want out of you. They want to like stir you up and things like that. And I don't know, I really liked Sophie. And then they just cut her character. They replaced her with Astrid. I mean, I do like Astrid, nothing against her, but I just wanted Sophie. It wasn't that hard to put her in. Point book. Now, during this bachelorette party scene is when Astrid tells Rachel that she thinks Michael is having an affair. But this completely goes against Astrid's character in the book. Astrid wants to do everything she can to make sure that nobody finds out about this, because her reputation is more important than, I guess, her feelings, kind of, is how it kind of goes. But she's gonna admit to someone who's basically a stranger to her that she thinks that this is going on when she feels so insecure about everything that's going on. Like, that doesn't really make any sense for her to do. Yes, she does love Michael, but also she doesn't want to lose face. She doesn't want to make this seem like it's affecting her. And so she wouldn't ever go and tell Rachel this. And I just didn't really like that detraction from her character that the book decided to play up. So I'm going to give another point to the book. Another somewhat major plot point that the movie just didn't even brush on, really, was the relationship between Rachel and her mother. They have such a strong bond. It's so sweet. Her mom is always calling her, checking up, making sure everything's okay. Just because she knows how she is, it's like the single mother and daughter relationship. That's something that I very much loved in this book, and they just didn't even do it. They just had one conversation with her mother in the beginning, and that was it. But it's really important that they establish this bond because of the big plot reveal that happens in the end of the book. So it just didn't make sense. And it makes the ending less impactful, and I just didn't like it. Point book again. There was an added scene that I don't recall being in the book where everyone's over at Emma's house and they're making dumplings, and then there's this really intense tension between Rachel and Nick's mom, Eleanor, because Eleanor keeps telling Rachel, oh, you're never gonna fit in. Like, they still don't accept me, so you're never gonna be accepted. I still came from a little money, but you come from no money, so you're never gonna be accepted. And Rachel stands up for herself, and I loved that. I thought it showed how strong she was, even though she's been like beaten again and again and again by these rich ladies and everything like that. She is still gonna stay strong, and she's not gonna take any crap from Nick's mom. And I love that. So, point movie. So again, I'm watching this movie and I'm sitting here thinking, like, I know it's supposed to be a romantic comedy, but I think they played up the comedy part of it more than the romance side of it. Sometimes I feel like they were adding in scenes or taking out certain parts that added more to the comedy aspect of romantic comedy and decided to ignore the drama that was behind romance. Now, this book, it did have some laughs in it, but also it was a very intense book. I thought there was a lot of drama going on, and I really liked that about it. And I think that this movie, to, I guess, give it a little more mass appeal, decided to play up the comedy aspect more. Something I can understand, but not that I really liked. So I'm gonna give a point to the book. However, speaking on comedy, the added scenes with Paisley and with Ollie are hilarious and fantastic, and I thought those did a really good job when it needed some lighthearted moments in the movie, and those added scenes probably also would have added to the book, but did add to the movie as well to make it a good time, so I gotta give a point to the movie for that one. So, the big day is finally here. The reason we're in Singapore, it's the big wedding of Arminetta and Colin, and so, again, I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking, where's Eddie? Eddie has been seen nowhere in this film. Eddie is just one of those characters that you love to hate, and they just completely left that out. They barely gave him any reason to hate him, except maybe a little bit here and there. But there's also this fantastic scene between him and his wife Fiona. She has this great character arc where she goes from just accepting what he's doing, like cheating on her and talking down to her and things like that. She's just accepting that, to walking out on him saying, I'm not gonna take this anymore. And she was just such a strong female character that I loved that she developed that much. She's not in here. If you hadn't noticed, none of that is in there. And that really disappoints me, because I think that would have been a great part to add to just give us another, yay, you did that moment. And no. Speaking of character stories who were cut, did the movie makers just decide to not read this book at all and not give us anything with Michael and Astrid's relationship? Like, did they think that we were going to be satisfied with this ending? Them just having a conversation in a limo and Michael just kind of storming off? Not really giving a clear explanation like he did in the book. There was this whole big thing that I loved, and they just didn't even bother doing it, because I think it really does play into the theme of just because you have money doesn't mean that you have happiness. And we kind of get that from Michael. I mean, that was the whole point of it, because Michael and Rachel are kind of similar in that fact. But I mean, I didn't get that from watching the movie. Point book. The last thing I noticed that was kind of left out were like the fights between Eleanor and her friends, and like Francesca and all the other women there. These fights show, again, kind of how like money and power doesn't mean that you're gonna have happiness between your friends. And some of these women are just so petty, and I love to see that, because it just makes this theme of money doesn't equal happiness so much stronger. And they kind of had it, not so much. Point book. So the wedding is happening, and Arminetta is walking down the aisle, and whatever song was playing during that, I now want when I'm walking down the aisle. It was so beautiful. Might have brought a tear to my cheek. I just loved it. Point movie. Actually, I'm gonna give another point to the movie, because everything about that wedding scene was so beautiful. The setting, the dress, the water aisle that she was like walking down. Oh my gosh, all of it was just so gorgeous. The production team did great. All the cinematography was beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. So wedding happened. We're having a good time at the reception. So now is when Eleanor decides to drop the bomb on Rachel that she hired a private investigator to report on her and to discover her background and things like that. And then she's gonna drop that here at a wedding? No, like I'm okay with them cutting out the scenes of her friends traveling to find the PI, and that's why they missed Alma's party. I'm fine with cutting those scenes, but at the beginning of the movie, she said, no, I don't want to hire a private investigator. And then she's gonna go and do it anyway without any kind of notice or mention or anything like that in this movie. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why they could have at least mentioned it maybe once or said something about it and not just dropped it on us like they dropped it on her. No, I didn't like that. Point book. Now, we're at the part of the movie where Rachel and Nick have split up. Rachel is just kind of camping out at Peg Lynn's house because she's just so upset about everything that's been going on. And then she had this bomb dropped on her. And you know what? Now, I would be lying if I said that I didn't shed a tear again when Peg Lynn's family was helping out Rachel, like when the twins were bringing in the tray, making sure that she was eating. Just warmed my heart. Point movie. One of Rachel's biggest character moments was when she decided to go off to China and finally meet her biological father. This is something that takes a lot of courage for her because of who she is, but she's finally gonna start deciding what she wants to do with her life after it's been lied to, and she takes charge and everything, but we get like none of that in this movie. So point book. Another touching scene was between Nick and Colin and a blue jay. So this blue jay is flying into the window of Colin's house. He just keeps trying and trying and trying. He's not gonna let this glass stop him until Nick comes open and opens the door, and this blue jay is just so happy he's finally been able to get in. And this is what inspires Nick to like go and fight for Rachel. He goes and calls the mom and flies her out there so Rachel and her can have this conversation, and just shows how much he really cares and how much he's gonna fight for her, and they just cut it. Point book. So Rachel's mother flies out to Singapore to talk to Rachel about everything that the PI dug up about her. Now, at first in the book, Rachel is not having it. She has this close bond with her mother, and now she just feels completely betrayed that she doesn't even want to talk to her mom about anything that's been going on because she just feels so hurt and lonely and everything. But the scene, which lasted so long in the book, is wrapped up in like 2 minutes. She's like, yeah, this is what happened. This is why I did it. The end. Really? You're gonna cut out one of the biggest explanations for probably one of the biggest bomb drops in this girl's life, and you're just gonna be like, meh, this was it. Like, we're curious too as an audience of what happened, but they're not gonna go into it. Point book. Like I've said before, the main theme that I gathered while reading this book is that money and power does not equal happiness. And I feel like I really didn't get that in this movie. From cutting out certain plot lines to just even little scenes that would have helped, it just wasn't something that I really felt. And I thought that was really what Kevin Kwan was going for in this book, that just because all these people have money doesn't mean that they have the best of lives. They may think that they do, and they want to put on the persona that they do, but there's so much more that goes into that. But I didn't really feel that in this movie. I may be the only one, but I'm gonna give a point to the book because the movie just didn't really give me that feeling. After things have settled down, Nick decides to go off and propose to Rachel. And I'm like, excuse me? He does not propose in this book. Because of everything that's going on, we don't even know at the end of the book if they're like officially back together. I mean, it's kind of made clear, like you can tell that they're probably gonna get back together, but it's not 100% for sure. And then he's gonna go and propose? No, 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 no. Point to the book. Ugh. So there's another added scene at the end of this movie between Rachel and Eleanor again. So Rachel decided to turn down the proposal because she knew that would either mean Nick choosing her or his family. And she didn't really want him to have to make that choice. She felt like even though how much she hated this family and how much of the stuff that they did to her, she didn't want Nick to have to lose them for her. And I thought that was really sweet. It really played into her character. And it was a nice added moment between these two women who you think are so different, but really they're the same. And I really, really did enjoy that. So I'm gonna give a point to the movie for that. There's also another weird added scene between Astrid and Michael. I think like Michael's moving out of the house or something like that. And like, why bother? Like, this is a scene that you're going to include when you didn't even bother to like build up their relationship at all. Like, why include this? You just felt so out of place. Point book. Rachel and her mom are heading back to New York. They get on a plane, something that didn't happen in the book. And Nick makes this grand gesture of going onto the plane. And of course they try to play it off for laughs with Nick like going in between passengers, you know, trying to like speak between them, but a passenger's, you know, trying to put his stuff in the overhead compartment. And then he proposes again and she says yes. Like, how many times do I have to say it? He does not propose. Now, however, I know of instances where movies have done this before, where there is a few books in like a series or something like that, and you don't know if you're going to get picked up for the second part, and what they do is that they just have an ending of maybe something that happened at the beginning of the second book. One of the movies that comes to mind for me is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Now, at the end of the first book, the characters don't end up getting together, but they do end up getting back together at the beginning of the second book. So because you don't know if they're gonna get picked up for another movie to make the second book, I can understand putting in a scene like this because, I mean, they get together at the beginning of the second movie, so nothing really changes in the major plot line. Now, I actually have picked up the second book from the library. I haven't started reading it yet, but if he doesn't propose in the first few chapters of this book, I am staying so mad because you can't add something like that if it didn't happen at all. Like I said, if it happens in this book, I will be a lot more calm. But for right now, ugh. So the credits start rolling and I'm sitting here thinking like, where was Nick's father? He wasn't a major character in the book, but he was a really great character because he was kind of the opposite of Nick's mother. Yes, he was the one that came from money, but he also thought that it was the person inside that mattered more than their background or their financial status or anything like that. And he was a nice like balance to have, showing that, hey, not everyone in Nick's family is terrible, but they just didn't have him. Point book. So there's like this weird mid-credit scene that they have, and there's Astrid, and then they finally introduce Charlie. Like, this is the moment you're going to choose to introduce Charlie. Like, why? Why did you have to add that? Well, the winner by a long shot is the book. So we'll add this again to the winners category of the books for book versus movie. Well, this feels like it's been a really long and ranty video, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Yes, I did enjoy this movie, but compared to the book, it just wasn't what it could have been. So let me know all that and more in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more things like this. But until next time, keep on gabbing.